Hi guys, this is Heather with Creativity by Heather BE. Welcome back to my channel. So today I am showing you 5 cards created with the July Hero Art, my monthly hero kit. This kit was wonderful. It's very nostalgia. It's back to the county fair time, and which happened in the fall and in the summer as well in most places. So I'm jumping right in. The kit is sold out, so I didn't do an unboxing. There's stamp sets, dies, which you'll see throughout the video. So the first card, I decided to do a partial die cut card. So what I'm going to do here is I took a sheet of 8.5 by 11 and cut it in half, and then I'm just drawing a pencil line down at 4 3/4. And I'm going to lay my die, so I'm using the die for the snacks, the carousel, and the Ferris wheel. And you'll see I'm putting them a little bit underneath the line. That's where it's not going to die cut. So I'm going to use some purple tape, and I'm going to tape at the top. And you want to make sure that you tape where you can still see that line. I am going to just trim the edges off of this, and then I'm going to put it into my Big Shot machine. So anything that doesn't have both plates on top is not going to die cut. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to position my paper in, and I'm going to put my top plate where the slope or the bevel, the pencil line that I drew is right in the center of that bevel, and then I'm going to run it through. So what it's going to do is it's going to cut the top of the die cuts but leave the bottom intact. So when I take it out, it's going to look kind of crazy, but once I stamp the stamps in there, then it makes more sense and it looks right. So I'm just very carefully pulling off, and you can see there as I bend it down where the die cut on the top, and there is a little bit of black ink or something up on that top panel, which doesn't matter because I'm going to get rid of that panel anyway. So I'm going to remove my other 2 die cuts, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a paper trimmer, and to get that to completely come out, I am going to just trim along the open areas. So I'm going to stamp these out first, and for me I found it was easiest just to use a stamp block, an acrylic block, and then stamp it out. I am using the Brutus Monroe Raven Detail ink to do this. They were very simple to line up. My head's going to get in the way here in a moment, and I actually did edit out me stamping the other 2 because you see my head so much. But it was, if you have a stamping tool, you could use that as well, but I felt like it was just as easy to use an acrylic block. So what I'm doing here is I'm lining this up in my paper trimmer, and I'm just going to trim right up to each image, in between each image and then on the other end. So what's going to happen is once I've got these trimmed, then I'll be able to completely remove that top piece. So what I'll have left is the 3 different, the carousel snacks and the, oh my goodness, I cannot remember the other one. My mind just went blank. The Ferris wheel, so there it is, on the top, so as you can see there. So what I'm doing now is I'm lining, the Ferris wheel is the tallest, so I'm lining that up with 4 3/4 because I want this to be able to fit inside an envelope. And then I'm just going to trim the end off. And I know, guys, this looks scary. You're going, wait a minute, where's the rest of my card? And it is a full size. So once I get everything cut out, I'm going to go in and do some Copic coloring. And I went through this very quickly. I pretty much stuck to the same color palette. I used reds, blues, a little bit of yellows and golds, and then I used a really light B000 to fill in like the windows on the snack center. I did use I think a B02 in the Ferris wheel, which is what you can see me doing there, because when you look through it, you would be able to see the sky and also the carousel. I do have all the Copic colors that I use listed below and also on my blog. So if you're interested in the colors, very simple, hardly any shading, a little bit on the gray part of the carousel, the bottom part of the carousel. I decided to keep the horses just a tannish brown color. I didn't really want to go into a bunch of like pinks and things like that on this card. I wanted to keep it very kind of simple and old-fashioned. So once I go in and do the coloring, I am going to add in some grass on the bottom, and part of this video was it not usable, so that will actually be cut out. I think there's a little bit on the end. Before I do the grass though, what I'm going to do is I need to make a card base for this, because remember, this is still just a card panel. So what I'm doing is I'm lining it up. I put it on just a regular top fold card base. This is Nina 110 pound. And I'm lining that top Ferris wheel up again with the 4 3/4, and then I'm just removing it, and I'm going to cut off that bottom. So now my card base is actually, it's only the size from the die cuts down, as you can see here. So it's the same size as a regular A2 size, but the actual like writing part is smaller. And there you can see where I went in and added some of the grass. I did take a colorless blender and just kind of go over the bottom to kind of fade it out. And then I'm going to put my sentiment on the bottom. I am going to attach this using the Nuvo liquid glue. And don't forget, whenever you're gluing this on, you only want to glue from that line down, because the die cuts are actually going to be hanging off the top of the card. So you don't want to put adhesive there. So I'm going to attach this to my little card base. And for my sentiment, I used a stamp from the kit. It says, "You make the world go round," which I thought was appropriate because I had 2 of the rides do actually go around that I had up there. The sentiments in this kit, I really liked what they said, but some of the writing was a little bit difficult. The very last card you'll see, I actually heat embossed the sentiment, and I had to do it a couple times because it was kind of hard to read. It's in almost like an, reminds me of like a 1800s type script. So I'm just stamping this out, and I just used Versamark black ink here to stamp that out. And I did take a Nuvo Aqua Shimmer pen and added a little bit of glitter, and then I went back in with my Nuvo crystal drops and added some shimmer to the windows and the snack center, to the little buckets on the Ferris wheel, I believe on all the flags. So I didn't go overboard with this. I wanted this card to have that kind of old-timey look without giving it a bunch of bling and things like that. I wanted it to just be very simple. Partial die cutting, I was very intimidated, and I can't tell you how many times I watched the video that Jennifer McGuire did on partial die cut, and I stopped it and I took notes. And I tell you guys, it was so easy. You know, once you figure out the dies and get what you want, it's very simple to do. And that is card number 1. So for card number 2, the kit actually came with 4 postcards. And they're on like a very thick, heavyweight craft paper is kind of the color of it. So I decided I wanted to just do a very simple scene on this, and in the stamp set there is a stamp that looks like from a distance you're looking at the entire kind of fair or amusement park, and it's shadowed like it's at night. So I decided to use that on the bottom, and originally I just wanted to keep this all black ink, but then I decided that I wanted to go ahead and add the red and the blue. So the kit also came with this cute little firework. So you can see there I actually stamped it out the same time I stamped out the bottom. I stamped it out in blue, and then I'm going to stamp it out a couple more times in red and a couple more times in the blue ink. And this red, white, and blue ink actually came with the Hero Arts kit. And I love now, I've been getting their kits for about 1.5 years, and I love that they've started to put the names on the front of these little ink cubes that come in their kits, because I have got so many of these little Hero Art ink cubes, and I have no idea what color they are because there was no color on them and they came in a kit. So I love that they're doing that now. So I'm just going to go through and stamp out some fireworks. I am also going to add a little hot air balloon. There was a tiny little hot air balloon stamp in the set that was really cute. There were a lot of really cute little small stamps in here. There are some little balloons, hearts and stars and things like that. Really cute little stamps in here that I can see using later on other cards that don't have anything to do with a fair, you know, potentially birthday cards, things like that. The sentiment that I decided to stamp on here, I wanted to keep it very simple. It's a postcard, and so I decided to stamp out the sentiment that says hello, and I'm going to stamp it right in the corner up above where I have my little balloon. I also decided, because it was kind of like a crafty type paper, I wanted to use my colored pencils. I did want to give that balloon some color, so I will use my colored pencils for that. So for the hello, I decided I wanted to do it a gradient in the two colors, so I just stamped out half of the first half of hello in blue and then overlapped that a little bit with the red, and it came out really nice. I like the way this came out because I looked at these postcards and thought, what am I going to do with these? And this was a very simple, fun card, and I could see myself sending this out to somebody. Really cute, just very simple. And then, of course, on the other side has the place for the address and where you can write a message, just like a typical postcard. I did decide I wanted to add one more red firework right there on the end, because you know, as crafters, we're never really done. We always look at it and think, wait, I can do extra on that. So I am using my Faber-Castell colored pencils here, and I'll have the colors linked below. I only used two. I used the red and the blue. That was it. Oh no, I'm sorry. I did use the really light brown to color in the basket. And I'm also going to take a white gel pen and just do a little bit of an accent up at the top of the balloon when I'm done with the colored pencils, just to kind of give it a little bit of shine and dimension to where it would look like the light would be hitting that balloon. When I first saw this card kit, I have the subscription, so I get the card kits. I've already paid for it before I get it. And I have to say, with Hero Arts, there have been maybe in the year and a half, one or two card kits that I have just thought, oh my goodness, I really would not have purchased this one. And I thought this one was going to be one of them, but it really wasn't. It actually, when I sat down and really started looking at it, I really liked this card kit, and I honestly didn't think I would. So this is card 2, very simple, technically a postcard, but a lot of fun to work with. So for card number 3, this awesome background die came in the kit, and background dies are not inexpensive, so I was very happy to see this in the kit. The value for the Hero Arts kits are just amazing. So what I decided to do is, off camera, I die cut it in, this is Blue Jay, this is Lawn Fawn cardstock. The kit did not come with any paper this time. And then I also cut the die from Lawn Fawn Raspberry and Lawn Fawn, I believe it's Mermaid. I'll double check that and have it linked below, but I believe it's Mermaid. So I wanted to keep this one, and actually the next card as well, kind of the same color scheme. So it's navy, that kind of pinkish raspberry color, and then like an aqua. I really like those colors together. So I glued down my navy, and you can see after I die cut them, I stuck them in little envelopes so I would not lose them, because, you know, things, our craft rooms are sometimes like big black holes. And so I pull those out, and I'm just going to go through, I'm using Lawn Fawn liquid adhesive, and I started to use the Lawn Fawn liquid adhesive, and then I actually am going to switch over to the Nuvo glue pen, is actually what I end up using to stick these down with. They're both strong adhesives. The Nuvo was a little bit easier to work with. So I'm just kind of going through, and if you've done any die cut inlay like this, you know it's like a puzzle, so you're just trying to find the pieces, and I wanted to alternate them. So I just went through and found all of the aqua colored ones, got them laid in, and then went back and laid in the raspberry ones. So there you can see all the aqua ones are almost done, putting the last one in, and then I'll go in and add the raspberry. This is the second month that the kit has not had any paper in it, which I have to, it doesn't really bother me that there wasn't paper. I'd rather they spent that money like on this background die, because then I can kind of use my own papers and when I'm doing these videos instead of being kind of bound to the ones that come in the kit. So I was trying to decide if I wanted to keep it white or if I wanted to heat emboss on that navy insert, and I did decide to heat emboss it. So there is a stamp in here called Enjoy the Ride, and I wanted to use that stamp, but I wanted it to be layered on top of each other. So I just cut it apart. And I did this in another video, and this is one of those things that was very scary for me the first time I did it. I think, oh my gosh, why am I cutting my stamp? But it's very simple to put it back together. You can just put it on an acrylic block, and I'll show you actually, I believe in the next card I do use it back together. So don't be afraid to do that, especially with the stamping tools and things like that we have now. I believe I used Brutus Monroe Alabaster for the heat embossing. Has become one of my favorite for white heat embossing. I used to use Nuvo, the Glacier, and I love this Brutus Monroe Alabaster. So I decided to give that center some dimension and pop it up, and I'm going to add it to a Neenah 110-pound solar white card base, and that will complete this card. And you see I still have the other pieces over there where I can create another card with them. I also still have all the blue inserts from the Blue Jay, so I can still create, you know, numerous cards with that one. And that is card number 3. So for card number 4, the way the die came, that background die, is the ticket die was actually in the center. So when I die cut it, I just left it in there. So that gave me all of these little ticket dies. And there's a stamp that says Ticket to Fun that you can stamp on top of it. And so I decided to use all these little pieces in, like I said, in the same color scheme to create a card where I use the tickets. So I'm just laying them out, and I'm going to use my acrylic block and line these up and stamp them. And not all of them are perfect, which, or actually no, I'm sorry. I was going to use my acrylic block. I end up using my MISTI and just putting them down in the corner, because that way I could just leave it in the door and just put the next ticket in. It was a lot faster. But some of them didn't always line up completely on the bottom, and I like that look, because if you look at some of the older stamped tickets, like when we were in school, and they weren't always even. Some of them were printed a little askew, so I like that look. It kind of gave it a little bit of character. So I am going to use, I decided to use the navy color that came in the Hero Arts kit to stamp this, just to keep that color scheme going. And this, I love Hero Arts ink. There's a lot of companies that I really like their ink, and Hero Arts is one that's very consistent. You know exactly how their inks are going to look, how they're going to look when they're dry. Really like their ink a lot. The other thing I decided to do here is, you can see how I have all the tickets laid out, and what I decided to do was to use 2 different sizes of a foam adhesive on the back. The middle one is a little bit thicker than the 2 on the side, so that way when I put it down on my card, it kind of gives it almost like where it's been rolled, because when you unroll the tickets and you set them down, they kind of go up in the middle. So I wanted it to give it that effect. So if you hold the card to the side, you can kind of see in the middle it's raised a little bit. So I'm going to go through and just adhere all of those down. Now the middle row, I end up actually putting my sentiment on that middle row. So the finished card, you're not even going to be able to see. It just looks like there were 2 rows of tickets. And the sentiment that I'm using is Come One, Come All, and then that is the Enjoy the Ride that I split apart. So you can see I'm just putting it back together on my MISTI there. No problem, didn't take a lot to get it back together. And now I'm going to stamp that out onto, this is Neenah 80-pound solar white. I wasn't quite sure at this point how I wanted the sentiment to fit on there. So I did trim it down, and you can see I'm kind of moving it up and down, figuring out, and I decided I wanted to cut a little fishtail in it. So I'm going to put that on one end, and I finally decided that I wanted it just in the middle. I just decided to cover up those tickets in the middle. I felt like it gave it a little bit more balance and kind of having it in between, because there really wasn't enough room. I also decided I wanted to stamp out the little hot air balloon, and I am going to use Ranger, I cannot remember what color that is, the turquoise maybe? I'll have it linked below. The Ranger embossing powder just on that little balloon. And I'm also going to add some Nuvo drops, and I'll have those colors listed below as well. Once I got it on, I felt like it needed something, so I took some Lawn Fawn twine in the same raspberry color and Blue Jay and just wrapped those around the top and the bottom of the sentiment. And I think it kind of pulled the card together a little bit more. I am going to use some 3M foam tape just to give this a little bit of dimension. And I did cut a piece of raspberry cardstock, the lump on raspberry, to put on the back just to have some of that showing as well on the white. And you can see there the Nuvo drops I added. And that is card number 4. So for card number 5, I decided I wanted to play with my alcohol inks a little bit. So the colors that I'm using are watermelon. No, I'm sorry. It's not watermelon. It's sailboat blue and poppy are the 2 colors. I'm also using blending solution. And in this little bottle, I had an extra little bottle. So what I do is I put just plain alcohol, rubbing alcohol in there. It's got a small enough tip on it that I can just squeeze it out. And then I don't have to worry about the large bottle. And I think I paid like 97 cents for the large bottle of it. So you don't have to get expensive. Alcohol is very inexpensive. And I just keep it in that little tube. So I'm just randomly laying out the red and the blue here. And I actually I'm going to make 2 card bases. So this one I'm just randomly adding things. And I'm going to die cut this out. And I'll show you that piece again in a moment. So I'm just going through adding blending solution. I love alcohol inks. You can have fun with them. You can be creative. Sometimes I'll get one done. I'll think, oh my gosh, I don't like that. And I'll set it off to dry and then I'll go back to it and it's gorgeous. Or there's a piece in there where I can see that I want to use. The other thing, I am using a glass mat here, the Tim Holtz glass mat. If you get alcohol ink on your glass mat, all you have to do is squirt a little bit of alcohol and it wipes right up. So another trick that I like to do, and this is one of my favorite ways to use alcohol inks because I like to have a little bit of control on it, is I take a little alcohol ink pad and I just squirt down the colors. So you can see I'm just rotating the red and the blue. And then I'm going to lay it down in a stripe pattern. And I'm not going to start clear over on the side of the paper. So you can see it kind of gives it that little brushed effect. And then I just lift it up and go down through. I love doing this. You can take it and you can swirl it in different directions. You can put as many colors of ink that'll fit on your little pad. It's so simple to create backgrounds. For those of us that don't like the kind of messy look all the time, this is a great way to kind of create a little bit more control. And I love this. I thought it fit in. I love that the color was a little bit lighter. It reminded me of that old time, which kind of fit with the card kit. And these are some other ones that I created. The one in the middle is the one I created on screen. The other one I had created while playing earlier, and I didn't like it. And then when it had dried, I loved the way it kind of had that foggy look. So I'm just going to cut this down to standard size card base. And I decided that I wanted to use a star on the front of this. So I'm going to use the sentiment that says happy birthday, and it's got kind of a little arrow coming down. And I'm going to use the Lawn Fawn, I believe it's the Inside Out Stitch Stars. I think is what it is. I have it listed below. And I decided I wanted to do that on vellum, so that way I could put it over the alcohol ink background and you could still see through it. So I am going to heat emboss this. I'm just kind of laying out my sentiment, making sure it'll fit inside that star. And I love this star set because what it does is it actually die cuts out the center part of the star and then a frame as well separately. So you're going to see how I use the other alcohol ink piece for this. Okay, so little disclosure here. I am using Mermaid Mermaid embossing powder from Brutus Monroe for this. I got the card together, was editing the video, and I looked up at the card and I just did not like that blue. So you'll see in the finished card, I actually used a white. I went back and redid that in white, which I think it looks a lot better. So here you can see I used that star to cut out from the first alcohol ink panel that I created. And I was only going to use the outline, and then I decided that I wanted to go ahead and use it as a backing and just use both pieces. I thought it looked a lot better. And I wasn't really crazy about that sheet as a whole, but when I die cut it, I love the little design and stuff that it made. So play around with the alcohol inks. Even if you think it's not a good one, leave it alone and go back to it, and you will find some piece in it that you will love. So I'm just used some Lawn Fawn liquid glue here. I am going to set something heavy on it. It's just a little stone container that I have, just to kind of glue that down. And I'm going to lay my frame out and frame it up. And like I said, in the final card, you will see that that center is now white, and I think it looks a lot better with the white. Really had a lot of fun with this card kit. I honestly had ideas to create several others, but I knew with that first partial die cut card, it was probably going to be a longer video, so I didn't want to make it any longer, and I think it ended up being almost 27 minutes. So I will probably have additional videos with different cards using this card kit at some point. So that is card number 5. Very fun, very festive, especially if you have somebody who has a birthday this month, which in our family is a lot of us. I also went in and added some little dewdrops on here, and I believe these are from Studio Katia. So I just went in and added 3 or 4, and that's the jewel picker is what I'm using there to pick them up, just to give it a little bit of interest. I wanted to use those jewel drops because I knew the color would still come back through. And that is card number 5. There you can see it with the white, so I think it looks much better with that white. So that is the 5 cards 1 kit. Had a lot of fun with this. I encourage you to play with your alcohol inks if you have some. They're very inexpensive as well. And also try the partial die cutting. Don't be intimidated by it. It is so much fun, and there's so many possibilities. So have a great day. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and like it. Have a wonderful day.